What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over a loadout that I've been using the last couple days that's been absolutely frying in the new Caldera map. It's actually, I don't have either of the guns fully leveled, but I think that might actually be a good thing in this case, because if I don't have them fully leveled, then probably most of you don't have them fully leveled. So we're going to go over how to build this gun when you don't even have all the attachments, and it's still ridiculously good, as well as the SMG. The SMG, there's a blueprint in the battle pass, so all of you probably have that, or most of you probably have that. And it's just, it's kind of hilarious how good it is. So we'll get into that in a second. As always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping a subscription. If you want to see more content like this in the future, drop a like and a comment on the video to help us out with the algorithm. And let's get into it, and we'll talk about the Sten and the Cooper Carbine. All right, so here's the loadout. It's the Cooper Carbine with the Sten, like I said. Perks are Cold-Blooded Overkill Combat Scout with a frag grenade and stim, and almost all of that's important to the loadout, so we'll go over all of it. The Cooper Carbine build is just the MX silencer. We picked the MX over the Mercury because we don't want to hurt that damage range. Because it's a long-range gun, we don't care so much about ADS time. It's still important, but damage range is probably a little bit more important for a main AR. Cooper Custom, I don't even know what the last barrel is, but this Cooper Custom barrel makes it extremely controllable, actually increases the fire rate, so you're going to get just better TTKs from that by itself. Reduce scope sway and gun bob, so that's like the sway when you're walking, when you're ADS, and the just the idle sway itself. Both of those are pretty bad on the Vanguard guns, so it's really nice to have this. And highly accurate and controllable, obviously, is super important for a long range gun. All this does is hurt sprint to fire and hip fire, which we do not care about because this is a long range gun. The scope, for some reason, the SVT 40 3 to 6x feels a lot better than the other 3.5x, the ZF4 3.5x. I tried using this one because I thought it would have better ADS times than the 3 to 6x, because in general, the variable zoom scopes have much worse ADS times. But for some reason, the ZF4 just feels way worse than the SVT. So 100% recommend using the SVT. If you don't have that yet, then definitely the G16 2.5x or the ZF4 3.5x would be the best option. But when you get this, just try it out, see if it feels better to you. To me, it felt way better than the other options. As for stock, this gives you, the other stocks really aren't great for like long range usage. So the Cooper 45, I ran without a stock actually on this until I unlocked the Cooper 45. But this gives you recoil control when mounted, crouched, or prone, and it gives you better accuracy and recoil control when you're having sustained fire. So that's like after the first 4 or 5 shots, your recoil is going to be easier to control with this stock. So that's a nice benefit. It hurts your movement speed. Overall, not that important to have this attachment. So if you don't have this, don't worry. You'll be fine without it. Underbarrel, in the first attachment unlocks, there's really not a whole lot for recoil, so we just go with the Carver. We don't care about hipfire accuracy, but we do want recoil control. And there's really no other attachment in here that helps with recoil to start with, so we just go with the Carver for that. It does hurt your ADS times, but again, long range gun doesn't matter that much. And then we go with the 60 round 9mm drum, and this is another thing that makes it really accurate. So this, in combination with that barrel that we chose, this increases the fire rate again, and also gives you a ton more recoil control and accuracy. It does hurt your damage, but because it increases your fire rate and the barrel also increases your fire rate, you're still going to get pretty good TTKs with this. I don't have the numbers, but I can tell you it feels like this thing still absolutely melts. Obviously, I'm working on all that data, but there's just so much in the Vanguard integration that it's going to take me a while, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this does hurt your bullet velocity a little bit and your damage range and your damage, but it's worth it for that recoil control. I've talked about this 1,000 times. The most important thing for a long-range gun is recoil, and this just makes this thing an absolute laser. In order to counter the lower bullet velocity that we get with those mags, we're going to use the lengthened ammunition. So this just increases your bullet velocity by basically like a flat 30%, which is huge. I messed around with using compressed rounds, but because we already had low bullet velocity, it just really, it's not a good idea. You just really can't hit shots past, 75 meters or so with that low bullet velocity. So lengthened is definitely the way to go. As for rear grip, again, we're looking for recoil control. ADS movement speed is always really good. Anything like that is just a straight positive. So taped grip's a good option because it gives you that weapon swap quickness. It's kind of like amped. I haven't tested to see if this works yet, but I think it does, and I think it seems like it helps with your weapon swap speed, so that's a nice benefit there. I currently have the polymer on here because this helps with that accuracy and recoil during sustained fire again. So anytime you're holding them the trigger for more than 4 or 5 bullets, which with this thing it shoots so fast, so after like just a split second, you're going to be in that that sustained fire period. That's another stat that I'll be looking more into, but I know that it works now because I can feel it when I'm using the guns. But that's why I use polymer grip, just because it helps with that recoil after the first few bullets. Groove grip's also great, so it helps with your aimed walking movement speed, your ADS firing movement speed, and it helps with your horizontal recoil, which are all three super, super important. So I think grooved and polymer are probably the top two that I would recommend, at least until you get this gun fully leveled. I don't even know what these last grips are, but grooved grip definitely is one of the absolute best rear grip attachments for any sort of like long range gun or even SMGs, because it gives you that almost like Raider stock ADS movement, which is awesome. As for perks, so I use Brace. This gives you initial firing recoil. So now I have 2 attachments that are helping with sustained fire recoil, and then 1 attachment that's helped with initial firing recoil, and then 2 attachments that are just helping with recoil everywhere. So you can see we're stacking all these things together in a way that makes it so this thing is an absolute laser. It feels like the Automaton did before the nerf, maybe even more accurate to me because it's less bouncy. There's less visual bounce. I'll give you guys an example of this too, what this actually looks like in practice, but it feels super, super accurate. You can use tight grip if you want for that sustained fire, but I like to use brace just because it gives me some that are for sustained fire and some that are for initial fire. And then perk 2, you can use whatever you want here. I use surplus just because I'm trying to level these things faster. I don't even know if this works, but I just use surplus because I'm trying to get levels quicker since this is a new account for me. Mounted movement would be okay. Now that you can move while you're mounted, it's kind of massively OP. But anyway, this is the Cooper Carbine build, and I pair this with the Sten. So this Sten is hilarious. Basically, this first barrel says hipfire accuracy, recoil recovery, and hipfire recoil recovery. This attachment by itself gives the Sten better hipfire than we've ever had on any SMG ever. I'm pretty sure. Haven't measured it, but it's ridiculous how much this barrel helps. I think it might actually be bugged. I'm not positive, but the hipfire is insane with that. And then we just stack hipfire attachments to make this even sillier with attachments. So the M1915 steady grip helps with hipfire again. The 45 ACP 28 round fast mag has an insane reload time. It takes just like literally half a second to reload. Even without sleight of hand, you'll get a reload instantaneously. This helps with your damage and really, really hits hard. And because it hurts your fire rate, 28 rounds is actually enough with this fast reload time. So that's why we can get away with that. If you want more bullets, you could definitely go with the 9mm 50 round drum. But I've had a really good time using the 28 round fast mag just because the reload's so fast. Incendiary bullets are super good because 1, they do extra damage, and 2, they delay your opponent plating. So whoever you shoot can't start plating right away until that damage over time wears off, which is probably one of the biggest benefits of using incendiary rounds. So on SMGs, 100% would recommend incendiary almost all the time. Rear grip, again, we're going for max hipfire, so we do hipfire accuracy and recoil control with the Pine Tar grip. We don't really care about ADS times, and even with all these attachments, the ADS time is still really, really good. Optic, you can pick whichever optic you like. I think pretty much everyone likes the slate reflector for their SMGs. And then the stock, again, hipfire and movement speed. We really want movement speed, and we'll get to that in a second. But hipfire accuracy and movement speed makes it even faster and has better hipfire there. The last perk we're going to use is Gung Ho. So this allows you to fire while sprinting. This is kind of the final piece of the puzzle here. So you have insane hipfire, insane movement speed, and you can fire while you're sprinting, which means sprint to fire time doesn't even matter. Again, I'll show you guys a clip of this working, but it's it's silly. You can move at 7 meters per second and have a hipfire cone that's almost like you're not even hipfiring, and just run through people. And then the last perk, again, quick. This gives you better sprint speed, so that stacks on top of that Gung Ho perk. It's just a funny loadout, and it works extremely, extremely well. And like I said, everything in here is important. So the reason we run stims, this Sten has such good hipfire that if you run stims with it, you can pop your stim, and obviously you can't ADS while you're using a stim, but you move so fast now with the buff to stims. Basically, if you're taking fire, that stim's going to constantly be healing you, and you can still fire because you have a ridiculously good hipfire cone, and you move at like light speed because you're using a stim. So it's just the whole combination of all these things together makes this Sten just disgusting. If you're having problems with the small mag capacity, then yeah, just switch up to the 50 round drum mag, but the idea stays the same for all of it. And then for perks, Cold-Blooded, Combat Scout is really, really good on this map because there's so much cover you can shoot through, plants and things like that. Combat Scout is hugely important. So that's why I like Combat Scout, and that's also why I said I like that rear grip, the taped grip, because with Combat Scout we can't have amped. So it's nice to have weapon swap quickness, but it's not a huge deal to not have that, in my opinion, on this map. But that's also why I use Cold-Blooded, because Cold-Blooded counters Combat Scout. So I'd recommend Cold-Blooded and Combat Scout pretty much all the time on this map until everyone starts running Cold-Blooded, and then maybe amped and other things will come back into the discussion for perk 3. As far as perk 2, Ghost is still really good. Restock's really good. High Alert is great on this map because there's so many different elevations and directions that people can come from. So High Alert's a great thing to pick up on your second loadout if you get that opportunity. Frag Grenade's got a huge buff, so frags are just fantastic as well. And they just fit in with this loadout perfectly. Alright, so I said I wanted to show some of this actually in action. So I've got the Cooper Carbine and the Sten out here. So I'll just show you the Cooper first with that 3-6X optic. And you can see it has very little recoil. It's just super easy to control. It does shoot a little bit to the left of the reticle, so that's something you kind of have to get used to. Like if I'm shooting at this tree, I actually have to aim to the right of the tree a little bit. But you can see that tree is at 80 meters, and I'm putting every single round on that tree. I'm just not missing at all, and that's how accurate this thing is. And then I also want to quickly show off how silly this Sten is with the Gung Ho perk and all of the hipfire attachments. So I'm going to try to kill this guy while sprinting. So you can fire while sprinting, so I can just run at him. And then hipfire. It's actually silly how small the hipfire cone is, how fast you can move, and all the things that go into this. I also want to show you guys firing while using the stim real fast. So let me respawn and drop in here, and then I'll show you how you can shoot while you're using the stim. And if you're taking fire, it makes it so your health just is constantly regenning, which is massively overpowered. Stims are really in a good spot right now. So if I swap over to my Sten, and then I use the stim, I can pop the stim, and I can still shoot, and I'm moving at light speed. The one downside is you don't get that, you don't really get the reticle. You don't get a crosshair anymore when you're sprinting, but you have it before you start shooting. So it's really not that difficult to actually hit your shots. And the stim is the same story. You can pop the stim and you just start moving at light speed and you get all your health back. So it's just a crazy combo. All these things add up into this gun being absolutely top tier. If there's someone really far, you have the 3-6X optic on your Cooper Carbine, so you can actually zoom in with that. And then if you mount up, it has even less recoil, obviously, and you can literally just not miss a shot at 150 meters with this thing. That's how accurate it is. It feels more accurate to me than the Automaton did before the nerf, which is crazy to even say because that was already like the lowest recoil gun we'd ever had, probably in any of the Warzone integrations. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to cover. Try this loadout out. It's so fun, absolutely fun. Please don't use it on me though, because I still want to raise my KD, so I'd really appreciate it if you would just use bad guns when you're in my lobby. Thank you for that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it interesting and useful, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day.